Hi, this is Tom from 6 Foot Networks, and tonight I'm going to talk about a little further about the macOS server app as it is in version 10.14 of the macOS operating system. This is server version 5.7.1. This is the latest Apple build as of today, which is February 3rd, 2019. Let's get started. So first things first, I had a few questions through the holidays that I wanted to answer. I should say that I wanted to get answered. And one of those questions was basically, hey, what do we do? Apple has crippled the server app and we can't upgrade our servers, and we're worried about security concerns. We're worried about services breaking, things not working right, and we're also worried that we have to maintain a server that's old because the services no longer exist in the newer version. Honestly, all of those points are very valid, especially from a security point of view. Apple does patch operating systems about a year or two back, but there will come a point when you'll have to research and pull the trigger on a new platform that can do pretty much the same thing. Well, it'll need to do what you had it to do, so it'll probably need to do the same thing that you had macOS server doing, whether it was DNS, DHCP, VPN, web services, any of that, even Open Directory. Just to review, kind of touch on the previous video that I did on the macOS server app, as you can see here, we're looking at the macOS server app. Here you can see what version this is, and you can also see what date we're at. This is year 2019, so if there's any questions, there you go. This, like I said, is the latest version, and you can see that there's a lot of services that are just gone. And even if you go up to view, where all the services would be listed if you had all these hidden or contracted. There isn't much. As far as services go, there's only one, Profile Manager. If you're in the business of running an XAN, then both Open Directory and XAN are still fully supported. Everything else is just the basic, alert certificates, logs, and stats, and so on and so forth. That's it. There's nothing else. So I can totally understand where companies and some of my clients even were like, hey, we understand Apple released this, the new server app, and it's totally crippled, and it's totally, in a way, useless to us. And unfortunately, that's the way of Apple these days. And you can look at some of the comments that some people have written in the last server app video that I posted. I totally agree. As an Apple consultant and an engineer who's devoted pretty much a decade of his life supporting Apple products, this is a crippling blow. You buy a machine, you buy the server app, and you're not really getting much of a server with that app. So without further ado, I'm going to get into the topic of this video, which is basically, what do we do? What do we do now? Where do we go? Who do we, look at in terms of vendor or manufacturer, or what company can we look at to find our ways when it comes to getting our basic network services back, or some of the services that were deprecated in the server app? Well, back right before Thanksgiving, when all of these questions were coming out, after Mojave was released into the world and people started upgrading, they started getting into a pinch because they realized, oh my God, none of my services are here anymore, and it's very hard to roll back. Unless you have Time Machine, it was almost impossible to roll back without having to recreate your environment, wiping the disk, reloading macOS High Sierra, and then recovering all your services from, if you had backups or exports, bringing that back in. So we kind of sort of made it our priority to look at platforms that were readily available on Amazon or other, Newegg or B&H or whatever reseller flavor you like to use, and we tried to compare platforms. Now, I feel the need to point out that this video is not sponsored by anybody uh, other than 6 Foot Networks. We spent a lot of money to research and try and test, and some of these devices ultimately went back because we only had them for a few days before they went back. But the device that I'm going to talk about in this video has actually proven to be sort of a godsend or a miracle server replacement. I say that because for the cost, which was under $1,000, by the way, this machine is really powerful, is really stable, and is really well developed. And hopefully, as the video progresses, you'll sort of agree with me on that. Like I said, I'm not being sponsored, so this is just my own opinion for a product that has actually proven to be quite useful in our environment here at 6 Foot Networks. Now, as many of you guys know, we are predominantly Mac. We only run PC in a virtual environment for those odds and ends that we need PC software for, any Crestron development or appliance management that requires, Silverlight or, any core Microsoft products that we really have to run on a PC. So without going too far into the machines that we ultimately return back, or the software that we kind of used for a little bit, set it up, crashed it a few times, ultimately decided that it wasn't for us, this is what we came up with. So this is the web interface to a Synology NAS appliance. Now, this is literally one box that has 4 disks in it. In our case, I think we have the 8 terabyte disks in it. So we have, actually no, it might be 4 terabyte disks for 12 terabytes usable. So in a RAID 5, you lose a disk. So 12 terabytes usable, and you can see that, the basic mode, well, the basic mode that it starts out with is this. So out of the box, you get this. It's pretty simple. You can set up your network, set up users and groups, and then also file services. Now, I'll start with the file services because one of the things that we had to replace our Mac Mini that ran our network services on was the AFP and SMB shares that it stored. And here it is. This has a full SMB, AFP, NFS, FTP, TFTP, and rsync server built right into it for free. It comes with the OS. You just enable it, and basically you set it up however you want. You can see here that we're using SMB and AFP, and it's accessible from PC, Mac. It's also accessible from Linux via SMB. So great. Out of the box, it'll do our file sharing because the server app deprecated file sharing a while ago. I'm not going to go under shared folders because that'll list all of our folders that we have shared as well as the details to connect to them. And this machine is now in production. This was a machine that we bought kind of towards the end of our testing because we weren't sure. I've never heard much about Synology until late last year, and at that time there was a lot of uncertainty of how it would apply to our kind of environment, and lo and behold, it has proven itself more than capable in a lot of different areas. So one of the other things that we needed from this device was the ability to do DNS. So if you go into the package center, you can see that up here, you can see under this section, all of these services are provided by Synology. And you can scroll through them, and there's so much here that I can't even begin to start telling, because I haven't used a lot of this. I mean, this thing even has a radius server built in. Or if you want to do a single sign-on server, or surveillance station, or proxy servers, or mail servers, this is all included. Now there are some services down here, if you scroll down further, that are third-party. You can run an Apache server, you can run a Git server, you can run a Joomla, or Magento or MariaDB. I mean, take your pick. There's Drupal up there, Moodle. If you're doing this in a school, you can do OpenERP, PHP, Perl. I mean, the list goes on. And ultimately, at the end, you have WordPress, which a lot of people use for their websites and content management systems. So this thing's pretty much covered in terms of if you're a developer, if you're a business, small business, even medium businesses. And I got to tell you, if you look at Synology's website, their product line is massive, and their storage arrays go quite high in terms of terabytes. And it just depends on what your budget is. That'll ultimately determine which model you can get. And for the price, you can't really go wrong. I mean, we paid, you can see here the model. This is a DS418. You can see it's got a Realtek RTD 1296 system on chip, 1.4 gigahertz, quad core, 2 gigs of RAM. Now let me tell you something. This thing is stable, solid. No complaints whatsoever. Very easy to integrate. It took I'd say about a half hour to set up, maybe a little less. I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that we were migrating services, so I had to export text files and CSV files out of the old Mac that was running the server app, and sort of port it into this. But if you're starting out, this is straightforward. You connect to it. You see it's a secure connection, so you can set it up pretty much any way you need to without exposing yourself to the internet in any way. Your data is pretty safe. This thing will bind to Active Directory, so if you have an Active Directory infrastructure, your users and groups are taken care of. One of the other things that we needed besides DNS, we needed a web server. So we installed Nginx on it. Runs flawlessly. It runs a couple of small services, web services that allow us to basically host some documentation only. Nothing crazy, no graphics, no videos, no animation or any of that, but still text is fantastic. Along with that, you can see we have DNS already installed. We needed a VPN server because we were using the Mac Minis for VPN. This has it, and it comes with 3 of them. PBTP, which if you're worth your weight in gold, don't ever turn this on. OpenVPN, great solid platform. I don't have the need for it. We don't have any hardware that truly supports OpenVPN. We're running some legacy network gear that was donated to us a while ago, and it doesn't support the OpenVPN protocols natively on the routers and the firewalls. So we just use the L2TP IPsec, which is pretty secure. You can see we set a IP range for it. Ironically, this allows you to set up an IP range outside of your network, because this will do routing and network address translation too. So it understands that, pretty good, and it works. It allows us full connectivity to a network. The other thing that I really like about this is the resource monitor. because you can at a glance see what your utilization is on both the processor, memory, then the network, any disk utilization, your volume utilization for your storage. I mean, this one box that's literally a little bit bigger than a shoe box, maybe that you buy like a pair of boots or high tops in. It's just a little bit bigger than that. Like I said, this is the 4-drive model, and I'll go back to the info screen where you can see the model. This is a desktop model, so this sits on a bread rack that we have in our office, and it is absolutely phenomenal. This product is really solid. This one's been running for 13 days, 21 hours, because we updated it to the latest DSM. I don't remember what DSM stands for, but that's pretty much the OS, the name of the OS. You can see we're at the latest as of this video. And we have really no complaints in terms of, the graphical portion. This is all in a web browser. I can pretty much view this on an iPad, on an iPhone. The interface is a little bit different for iOS devices, but the full-blown browsers give you the full experience. And you can see, basically everything. Serial numbers, make, models, temps, pool configurations. What services are you running? Well, this will give you a whole list of them if you want to see them. Device analytics, you can subscribe to the device analytics by checking these boxes. Man, I can't get enough of this device. Basically, to not draw this video out too long, this device has given us so much flexibility with what we do and how we do it. This brought back the macOS server feel because it's graphically configurable. There's no command line here. It does have a command line. You can see here is terminal and SNMP, but we don't use it. We have no need for it. It was very easy to set up, and you can see, all these options. You can even, enable video transcoding. There's a whole bunch of stuff here. How you want to, even how bright you want the front LEDs to be. I mean, that's pretty impressive. As far as the services go, they are stable. They are solid. We don't have intermittent connectivity issues where the system disconnects. All of our internal data is stored on these, our documentations, our the videos that we produce. This video will at some point end up on there after we master it, and so on and so forth. Very stable, very solid. The one thing I do feel the need to point out is if you're, a medium to larger business, say 100 people plus, I recommend looking at their enterprise line of gear, which basically talks into rack-mounted. It goes into the rack-mounted gear area, which is phenomenal. Some of these 1U appliances with 4 disks in them that have 10 terabyte drives in them, that's pretty significant. I mean, to start out with a 30 terabyte 1U box usable is pretty impressive, and you get all these the package center on top of that, so you can pretty much run any sort of server and services that you need to. And you can see what we have installed just for testing purposes. I mean, this was the best, I want to say $800 that we spent on this, plus minus. The box and pretty much the box itself came diskless. You can put any disks you want into it. We put the Lone Wolf line of drives in, and I think altogether it was just under $800. So for the cost of a Mac Mini, we got a server back, and we got all the functionality back. And these are services that Synology is actively developing. You can clearly see that when you buy one of these and you put it in, you can see how often the updates come to you from Synology. You know, we just updated this. I forgot when it said, but it was pretty much about 2 weeks ago. Yeah, 2 weeks ago we updated it to the latest version, and I want to say they release updates every month, maybe every 6 weeks. So they have a pretty decent release schedule. Now we didn't go all full, you know, full crazy on this in terms of resources. Like you can see, we got 2 gigs of RAM and a 1.4 gigahertz CPU. Well, you can get 4 gigs of RAM, 8 gigs of RAM, and then, you know, a 2 gigahertz or 2.4 gigahertz CPU if you're using a lot more of the network portion of this appliance. You know, for us it was mainly file sharing, DNS, web, VPN, and we have DHCP on our edge router, so we didn't bother even testing this, but it is there, and all you have to do is enable it, really. Oh, and one thing you can see is under network, you can see that I'm trying to see if, oh yeah, you can see it. This is literally a bonded network port. So basically there's 2 physical Ethernet plugs or jacks on the back of this box that you can logically bond together to create a 2 gig pipe. Just make sure your switch supports 802.3AD for load balancing. Any Cisco switch or Juniper or Arista, you know, can pretty much handle that. Pretty much any enterprise grade switch will handle it. So if you have a larger, like a 48 port switch that's managed, you should be able to enable trunking or link aggregation on this. And that was actually pretty much what met all of our considerations. In fact, it exceeded some of them. Ease of use was huge on that. Cost was a pretty big one because we had to fund a massive experiment to, you know, buy all this hardware all at once, set it up, test it, break it, fix it, set it up again, break it, test it, you know, the rinse repeat. The process went on for, you know, quite a while, 2.5 months to be exact, and we decided to keep this device. And again, I'll go back to the info center so you can see it. We decided to keep this device because for us it made sense, and it is still holding strong. And we've had this since the, I want to say the end of November, right around Thanksgiving. We did not get this on a Black Friday special. We did not get this on Cyber Monday, I can tell you that much. I want to say that it happened maybe 2 or 3 days after Cyber Monday. Because we were just starting out the process. I was trying to vet hardware without buying it, without putting in a major capital expense at the end of the year. It was kind of rough, but we managed to do it, and we hope that this video can shine some light into, you know, the path of least resistance when it comes to, you know, services that you need to keep your network running, keep your users in the loop and connected. And, you know, there's so much more that this thing can do that's outside of the scope of this video. This was basically meant as a as an intro to it, as an option for you, and I hope that, you know, sort of good things happen from it. Like I said, we've had good luck with it, and we hope you do as well. Anyway, please like, subscribe, give us feedback. We love to hear from you. Let us know, and we'll be back soon with another video down the line here, pretty soon, hopefully. But let us know how we can help. If we can help you, reach out to us. You can reach us at info@sixfootnetworks.com, or just go to our website, www.sixfootnetworks.com. Have a great evening, and I'll catch you all next time. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.